The night it all broke had begun with a silence that smelled of ozone and cold metal. In his office on the 30th floor of Manhattan, Evan Crawford, a Sacramento boy who had risen to the title of the youngest tech mogul on the cover, sat alone at his spotless desk, staring at a letter from his own board. "You are temporarily suspended as CEO." The words were stamped on steel. He smiled, as Americans do when their teeth are the last bastion of panic. "Temporarily," he said into the void. "Temporarily, like snow in August." Then the phone rang. "Evan," came the voice of his sister, Lana, the one who always spoke the truth sharply. "The news is talking about a massive falsification of user data." "Is that true?" "That's the mistake. System error, media hype. Tomorrow, everything will calm down." "Tomorrow?" "They are already near your house. And Mom asks if you are still the same boy." The sister's words sank in like shards of ice under the skin. There was a knock on the office door. The company's lawyer entered, stern as the winter sky. She placed another envelope on the table, a copy of the Attorney General's lawsuit, signed, and this was the worst part, by Evan's former partner, Marcus Shade. "He's my brother," Evan whispered. "We built this together. He says you betrayed the users." Sirens wailed from the street. On the TV screen in the corner, "Shock, Crawford under investigation. Stocks are falling." A helicopter whistled over the city that never sleeps, and suddenly the space was compressed to the size of a box that lacked air. "Why today?" Evan rested his hands on the edge of the table. The lawyer didn't blink. "Because today Marcus has evidence. And today is the day America likes to change channels." Something crunched inside, as if the steel had given a microcrack. He remembered how he and Marcus had written the first prototype in the garage, how they had shared pizza and loans, how they had sworn never to sell yourselves. And he heard a whisper inside him, thin, dangerous. "Maybe you really have become different?" When the door closed, he was left with 2 sheets of paper, and with himself, a stranger. The story he had controlled slipped away. He typed a message to Marcus. "Let's talk without cameras." The answer came quickly. "Late." A period. One period that broke the past. Evan stepped out into the hallway, where the fluorescent lights were shining in his eyes, and he felt his name suddenly become too heavy to carry. Thus began that American evening, in which someone lost an empire and someone lost themselves. And he wasn't sure who he was becoming. The next few days were shattered into fragments sharper than the truth. The media relished the numbers and the betrayal. Over 50 million profiles collected without explicit consent. The algorithm was inserting political advertising. The opt-out button was a trap. Each article sounded like a sentence. Evan tried to turn on the controls. Crisis communications, a team of lawyers, closed calls with investors. But the voices on the phone became alien. "Evan, we're temporarily distancing ourselves." "Evan, sell your stake and keep your name." "Evan, America loves the dips as much as the rises." "You all wanted growth," he told the board of directors. "You applauded every quarter. Where were you when the buttons became a trap?" "Here," the ash-gray CFO replied. "And I said, slow down." "And I said," they pushed. Marcus's face flashed in Evan's mind. "You just stepped on the gas." Enemies were springing up like a leaf from under the asphalt. Former engineers were giving interviews. Crawford blessed the dark patterns. Relatives were chastising him. "You promised never to play dirty." Stocks were falling like an elevator whose cable had been cut. Lana sent a short message. "I'm here, but tell the truth. At least to me." He didn't answer. A new storm had broken into the office. Marcus appeared on a talk show with black diagrams on the screen, dots, arrows, dates. "I was forced to keep quiet by the NDA," he said, looking pitifully into the camera, "but silence is a crime." "You're lying," Evan whispered into the glass of the screen, as if it could hear. Suddenly, the government initiated an audit. The servers were sealed with seals, like the doors to a house where something irreparable had happened. At 8 in the evening, his mother called him. "Son, I'm in line at the pharmacy. Everyone here is looking at me. Tell me what to do." "Mom." He threw back his head, took a breath. I'm fighting. I'm fighting honestly. Not for my name, for myself." That night he realized that he was losing more than just his position. Reputation in America is a currency more valuable than the dollar. He went out onto the penthouse terrace. The city was ablaze with lights like a galaxy. But suddenly this galaxy seemed to be a set painted for the audience. The galaxy is not what it seems. His thought cut through, and he laughed hoarsely. At 3 in the morning, the news came. The court had seized his personal assets. Lana wrote, "I'm downstairs." He went down, hugged his sister, and instead of saying, "I'll do it," he whispered, "I don't know who I was when I built all this." "Then find it," she replied, "while you still have something that can't be arrested." When dawn broke through the night, he realized the old structure had collapsed, and under the ruins lay even worse things: call records, letters of compromise, like small betrayals that at the time seemed like the road to good. And for the first time in years, he felt truly scared. He went where he had never gone during his triumphs, to quiet places. A small coffee shop in Brooklyn Heights, the smell of caramel and old wood. At a table by the window sat a woman from his past, a former investigative journalist, Mira Chong. She had once broken his PR legends, but now she looked him straight in the eye. "You wrote me need the truth. I came because of only one word: need. I got lost," he admitted, feeling the word cutting into his throat. Marcus didn't just betray him. He is in charge of something bigger. Mira put the flash drive on the table. "You're lucky. People like to talk when they think they're not being heard." I worked on his charitable foundation. Inside were correspondence with consulting firms, ethics optimization schemes, fake contractors who wrote impact reports for regulators. "Your name is a screen. Why are you helping?" "Because I also watched it and kept quiet. I wanted a book, fame. Now I want to not wake up with the feeling of dirt on my fingers." He opened the documents on his laptop. The soulless spreadsheets came to life, like a film of a crime. You could see how manipulative patterns were advancing under the guise of testing. You could see how Marcus was transferring decisions to technical groups, and lawyers were signing off on the technical ones. And also, payments to political consultants with strange topics, emotional catalysis, information shadows. "If this is made public," Evan whispered, "everything will burn. And so will I. Or you will burn differently, slowly." He laughed a quiet, damaged laugh. "In Sacramento, my father used to say, 'Don't sell your conscience, even if it's bought in bulk.' I thought then that was a slogan of the little people. Now I understand. It's the only thing that doesn't get cheaper." Mira leaned over. "There's something else. A recording from an internal meeting a week before the big scandal. Marcus says, we need to hit Crawford. He's gone out of control." The silence grew like an abyss. "So," Evans said slowly, "I'm not only guilty of my compromises. I'm also the target." "That doesn't excuse it," Mira replied, "but it explains the battlefield." He closed his laptop. Instead of fatigue, a sense of direction came, a thin line in the darkness. Hope in the void, he thought, and for the first time in weeks he called his mother. "Mom, I found my voice." "Then speak up," she replied, as if she'd been waiting for these words her whole life. As they parted, Mira stopped him at the door. "If you go all the way, don't count on applause. In America, they love redemption stories, but they're afraid of real confession. I'm not for applause. I'm for that boy who once wrote code and believed in the light." The Capitol Hill hearing room is cold and stark, like an aquarium where sharks are in blood but fins are decorated with flags. Cameras click, senators warm up to questions, and Marcus sits in the front row, his posture even, his smile measured. "Mr. Crawford," the senator begins, "did you know about the unethical mechanics of engagement?" "Yes," he says, and feels the room shudder. "And I made silent decisions that I called quick. It was a weakness." Marcus raises his eyebrows. The game is falling apart. "But," Evan continues, "I also know how we got here. I will release internal documents that demonstrate a systemic conspiracy around manipulation, not just mine, but those who now call themselves ethics witnesses." He places Myra's flash drive in front of the committee. The room is a dull hum. The lawyers hiss. "NDA? Confidentiality." The senator bangs his gavel. "Mr. Shade." They turn to Marcus. "Do you confirm these correspondences?" "They're fabricated," he replies quickly. "This is an attack of desperation." "Then explain the money orders." Evan looks straight at him. "The emotional catalysis for political consultants the week before our tests. Explain the protocols for obfuscating the refusal. Explain why you're demanding in your letters to make me an unmanageable example." The pause drags on like a wire. The room turns into a mirror in which all the scars are finally visible. Marcus smiles at the corners of his lips. We were all playing the same game, Evan. You just stopped winning. Maybe, Evan replies, but I'm out of it. The senator leans forward. Do you realize that your confessions will lead to criminal liability? I realize. And I ask that you launch an independent audit of all contracts, including mine. This is an all-or-nothing moment. He has no shield, no stock as armor, only stubbornness, anger at himself, love for those who believed in a better internet, and remorse that tightens his throat. Lana sits behind, her fingers intertwined in prayer. Mira is the stone holding the rock. I will tell you about the buttons that make you stay. I will show you the design sprints that taught us to tickle fear. I will name names, not for a place in history, so that no one else can say, I didn't know. He speaks at length, simply, without brilliance. And with every word he loses something. Chances, friends, future boards of directors, and gains something else. A back that is no longer bent. When the hammer hits a third time, he has not won. But he has stopped running. Autumn has come to New York with a wind that blows away old signs. Evan rents a small apartment in Queens, walks, learns to be invisible. The legal battles continue. The headlines have tired of his name and switched to new fires. On weekends, he teaches a free course for students on ethical interfaces in a library room that smells of dust and hope. Why are you doing this? Asks a girl in the front row. Because I built a house of mirrors, he says, and the first wind came. Now I want to teach you how to build with stone and light. He lies awake for a long time at night, listening to the city breathe, and sometimes he fears, what if it was all in vain? Then he writes to Lonnie. Sometimes I think I've ruined life. The answer comes instantly. You've ruined a legend. Life is just beginning. Meanwhile, Marcus is on trial. Some of the documents are confirmed, some are lost in the labyrinths of appeals. America does what it does best. It mixes justice with show. Evan watches this from a distance, and for the first time feels no sweet desire to get back into the game. He is more interested in teaching boys and girls not to confuse success with value. One evening, he comes to the old garage in Sacramento, where their company was once born. The concrete still shows oil stains. The beams are covered with cobwebs. He sits down on the floor, as he did then, and says into the darkness, Forgive me, boy. I thought you could be rich and honest if you were smart enough. Now I think differently. It's not money that makes us dishonest, but the fear of losing it. Mira comes in later, brings coffee. You know, she says, I left a question in my notebook for the last chapter. Which is more important, truth or success? What if success is having the strength to speak the truth when it breaks you? They are silent. Outside, the stars, invisible across the city, seem as close as breath. Messages beyond the stars, Evan thinks, is not about space. It's about the voice that remains when the lights are turned off. He doesn't become a hero. He doesn't bring back an empire. He writes an open manifesto about the right to refuse, a simple button that really works, and puts it into open source. Some laugh, some pick it up. As he walks home through the Queens at night, his phone vibrates. A message from an unknown person. I used to work for you. Now at a small startup. We used your button. We're running low on money. But for the first time, I'm not ashamed. Evan smiles, his teeth bared. At an intersection, he stops, looks at the red light, and waits for it to turn green. Can you be rich and honest? Maybe. But he no longer builds his life around this maybe. He builds it around honest. And if success ever comes, let it come as a consequence, not an excuse.